answer will be conducted through the pieces of paper that you should have received on your way in. Please refrain from asking questions directly to the speaker during this time. If you have a question, please write it on the paper and hold your hand up, and one of our volunteers will bring it up to me, and I will address the question to the speaker. If you did not receive a piece of paper, please hold up your hand, and one will be brought to you. But I do guess maybe from the inspirational talk, there's lots of sketching going on right now on these pieces of paper, but also use them for questions as well. So first off, Mariya, let's start off a little bit more about your basic biography. You said you've been in Gwangju for 1 year, that's correct?
This month has been 13 months. Yeah.
13 months. I stand corrected. So what originally brought you here to Korea in general and Gwangju?
Okay, you really want to know?
I do.
So, I came here with a friend from Toronto. This is how it happened. I gave him a phone call. I was like, hey Kieran, what are you doing? He said, oh, I'm studying Korean. We were last year university, so 4th year university. Like, why the hell are you studying Korean? We live in Canada. He's like, well, I'm thinking of going to Korea to teach English. He loves K-pop, by the way. He loves K-pop. So I was like, you know what? I've been working at this architecture firm, and all I do is sit at a computer and draw lines, and my brain is kind of turning into mush. I want to travel a little bit. I want to see what teaching is like. So I was like, I'll come with you. He's like, okay. He didn't believe me. A few months later, I got all my documents in. I went with an agency called Canadian Connections. Maybe some of you, it's similar to Epic. And Canadian Connections only puts teachers in the Jeollanam-do province, in the countryside. That's why I work in Kamyang. And lo and behold, a year ago we were in Korea unexpectedly, and because I had absolutely no expectations for Korea, I loved it. Everything was new to me. It was great. I really like the language, so I've been coming to the GIC to learn Korean for the past year. And Gwangju is smaller than Toronto, so that's why I chose Gwangju. Toronto has 4 million people. Gwangju is only 1.3 or 1.4 million, which is very wonderful. It's not as fast-paced as Toronto, and that's why I'm in Gwangju. That's why I'm teaching, and I've been loving it ever since. Also, I'm in love with art, as you can see. That's the other reason why I wanted to teach art. With my teaching English for over a year, experience teaching English, I thought I could take on the challenge of teaching art, and it's been pretty good so far. So I think my initial dream job is to be an artist and to teach art.
Okay. More about yourself before we move on to the larger topic of the talk. You mentioned that you are from Toronto, but also originally from the Ukraine. When did you go from Ukraine to Toronto?
Okay, yes. I was born in West Ukraine, Lviv. It's I come from a town of 6,000 people. Very small, everyone knows each other. And I moved when I was 8 years old to Toronto with my mom, dad, and my younger sister, who was 3 at the time. And Toronto became my home for 16 years, and now Korea is my home for the past year.
Okay, and you mentioned you went to an art high school. How did that come about? What is involved with going to an art high school in Toronto, Canada?
I went to a high school called Etobicoke School of the Arts, and I went there because all my life I've been drawing, like I said. Since I could lift a pen, I've been drawing. And when I went to first grade in Ukraine, I knew I was different in art. I got more attention than the other kids did, and I got more praise for the art I did, so I knew it felt good also. So I kept on doing it and practicing it. And then when it was time to go to high school, I was fortunate enough to live in the area where there was an art high school. And the art high school runs like this. There's, I think, 5 different majors: visual arts, music theater, singing, band, drama, and dancing. So you had to audition. I had to audition for 1 week, doing drawings, writing an essay, doing still life drawings, and if they chose your work, you're in. So that's how I got in. And then to university, I went to a design university where I had to audition again with drawings. So yeah, that's my art life.
Okay, you mentioned that, like with the Picasso quote, that everyone is born an artist, but some people grow up and maybe the ability gets rusty. Do you think is it still possible to become an artist if you're an older person? Is it never too late to become an artist?
Is it ever too late to learn piano? Is it ever late to learn singing? It's not. It comes with practice. And the more you practice, the better you become. It's very simple. You know, that's why athletes practice. That's why musicians practice. If you stop practicing, which I did for 2 years in university, when I held a pencil in my hand again after not drawing for 2 years, I sucked. It was so bad. And then I was like, oh my God, my life is down the drain. I have to start all over. So I kept on practicing, and I got back at it in a few months. I was good again. So it's all practice. And I think the most important part is not being good right away. It's about being happy to express whatever emotion you have inside and put it on paper. That's the most important part, using it as an outlet.
You mentioned briefly some more thoughts about Gwangju as a city of the arts. Here at the GIC, we're just 1 block away from Art Street. You mentioned Biennale. What's your impression about Gwangju as a city of the arts?
To be honest, I was a little disappointed when I came to Gwangju. Biennale is wonderful, it's beautiful. This year, some artists have been pulled out because of the controversial censorship in art. But I've been happy with the art street. The thing is, the reason I was disappointed is because I couldn't find what I was looking for example, the drawing classes. And yes, Gwangju does have a reputation for being an art city, but I think art is something that Gwangju lacks a little bit, and it really desperately needs. The art street is beautiful. There's, murals drawn everywhere. There's amazing art stores where you can find any material you need. But it's very small. We need to expand.
Let's move on to the practicalities involved with the art class that you're here to talk today. Is there a maximum number of students for a class, and how do you deal with that? Is it first come, first serve? How do people sign up?
They don't, they just show up. The first class we ever had was 18 people, and it was in a pretty big room. It was maxed out. It was great, it was amazing. And then slowly people, it was like 6, 7, 8, 6 again. So it all depends what room we are in. I think the maximum we can hold now is about 11. Yeah. Hopefully, maybe Joey can get us a bigger room. But yeah, we've managed to fill it up.
And you mentioned the Facebook website. So do you post there? Is there a schedule, a curriculum that you follow from week to week?
There's no advanced curriculum. There's no, how do I say this? Future curriculum for like what's going to happen in a week, in 3 weeks, in 5 weeks. I usually post on Mondays or Tuesdays about what art class or what theme we will do on the Saturday. So it gives you a week's time to decide if you want to come or not. So, and then I obviously share photos of the group, which I've been recently taking.
Perhaps unsurprisingly, your topic about the nude model classes has generated a few questions. First of all, can you clarify the age limit that you set at 17? As most people are familiar with, the Western way of reckoning age and the Korean way is slightly different. Is that 17 plus in Western age or Korean age?
Let's say Korean age, so that would actually make them 16 in Western age, but it's okay, they're pretty mature. I want everyone to get an opportunity to do nude models. It's not a sexual thing as much as it is just drawing the human body the way we were born. We were born naked. It's not a big deal. Once you start drawing and get into it, you just see shapes and lines. You don't really focus on it as a whole. It's just, you're just hypnotized by drawing lines and shapes.
Okay. So with the classes, you mentioned the adult classes and the children's 7-week course. Do you have any plans for perhaps parent-child art classes together?
I've actually had that happen. A parent came with 2 of her kids to my 3-hour drawing class that I do with the teachers. And then I design a special kind of lesson for them. So I focus on them, and then the other teachers or participants, they know what they're doing. So I focus on them when they come. And some of the parents from my kids' class this morning came to help their kids. So it has been a communal parent-child kind of workshop in both classes.
One of the things you mentioned was the focus on the more academic subjects like languages and math here in Korea. 2 questions associated with that. Do you think that there's a dearth or a lack of art in general in the lives of Koreans? And do you see any benefit from that, from the mathematical, geometrical aspects of math within art?
Yes, there is math within art. There is theory. For example, proportion uses a lot of math and geometry. And using math is amazing for the basics of art. But when you get further and you get into exploring yourself as an artist and your emotion and drawing, the math kind of goes away. And yes, math and science and literature is very pushed in Korea, as it is in Toronto. Art is not as supported in Canada compared to Chicago, New York, or San Francisco, or anywhere in Europe. And in Korea, art lacks. We don't have enough art because the reason is there is a lot of competition for work. There is a lot of business in Korea. People focus on becoming doctors, scientists, engineers. Nothing really to do with art. And because I think they fear that they might not get a job. It's a 50-50 chance you either succeed or you become a starving artist. So that's my reason. But, give it a shot. It could be a hobby, even. It could be a great outlet.
Okay, let's wrap up with just 2 more questions. I'm going to go a little bit off your topic today. We have a lot of people who come week after week, and last week, for our regular participants, we had a bit of a political talk about Ukraine. Now, as a native Ukrainian, last week's speaker was advocating for no intervention policy by the West within the current situation in the Ukraine. As an ethnic Ukrainian, are you for or against Western interventionism within Ukraine? On the spot.
I'm for. Oh my God. You want to know why? I'll explain. I was born in Ukraine, and the life that my grandparents lived through that has been caused by Lenin and Stalin and the war. I'm from West Ukraine, and the relationship with Russia and Ukraine, I'll tell you now, is the same relationship with Korea and Japan. You will understand no one else understands. You know that Japan came in, they gave you a hard time, they killed your people, they put in Japanese into Korea, and they've taken over. And Ukraine is a small country, it was never as strong as Russia. It didn't have that many resources. We were part of the USSR until 1991. I was born in the USSR. And, it's just been politically very difficult. And I don't know if the West is, what they're doing is great. I don't know the whole West being too, I don't know. There's just too much fighting going on, and I think we do need help. We do need the war to stop. We need something to calm down. I don't think any, peace between Ukraine and Russia, just talking, it has not helped for the past 4 times. And there needs to be some other external influence on these countries.
Well, sorry to put you on the spot. Sorry for people expecting just to talk about art today. Sorry to go into global geopolitics. Let's get back to the art for the final question. It was a very interesting talk. You generated a lot of questions. If your question was not asked, please feel free to address the speaker in person. I think she's okay. She probably won't say no. So you talked briefly and showed us some examples of art by Andy Warhol, Pablo Picasso, Frida Kahlo. Are there any artists that you consider to be personal inspirations among famous artists in the world?
I like Andy's stuff. And personal, I can't think. When I was younger, I loved Rembrandt. I think he's the one that got me into oil painting. Picasso, I put him up there. He got me into experimenting with abstract, which, he's done a lot of that. And other than that, I think myself. I'm not famous, but I try to zone in. I try not to get too much external influence because I don't want to be copying anyone. So I just do my own thing.
Okay. Let's give her one more round of applause for answering.